It was a pretty extensive list. And in 90 minutes, you guys cleared this teacher's list. 90 minutes.
Over 21 years, sidekicks have changed. Even the radio frequency has changed from Q100 to 99.7. But one thing has not changed. Bert Weiss headlining The Bert Show.
Well, when I thought about interviewing you today, I really realized that Bert's big adventure, although it is your nonprofit charity, it could also be you in terms of radio.
It has been a big adventure. It really has. Yeah. I was not expecting any of this. None of it. When I took the job in Atlanta, Monica, I tell you, I had to get on anxiety meds because I was co-hosting, actually I was a sidekick and a producer on other shows. So I really felt like this was my only shot. And we literally had, it was a brand new signal. It was Q100 back in the day. It was a brand new signal. We had 0 listeners. I mean, literally, it was a brand new signal. So I remember being so stressed out and the fear of failure was so debilitating. I had to go on anxiety meds. And it was a really great time back then. I mean, we're talking 21 years ago now, right? When I was 12. 21 years ago. And it was such an amazing and liberating and free time, because when you have 0 listeners when you start, there is nowhere to go but up. So we'd find out we had 3 listeners and we were high-fiving each other in the halls. This is the greatest. We just tripled our listenership. And my program director at the time, a guy named Brian Phillips, really eased my mind, which doesn't happen in radio, and probably not in TV anymore either. I remember going into his office after about 2 weeks and going, man, you hired the wrong guy. I don't know what I'm doing. I thought I was ready, but I am not ready. And I remember him saying, look, go in and do the show that you've always wanted to do, and we'll circle back in, let's say, 6 weeks. And we'll try to figure out what you've been doing right and what you've been doing wrong. But until then, don't worry about it. Go in there and sound terrible. So I've been sounding terrible for 21 years. We never had that talk. But he took that stress away, that pressure of trying to be good, and I really believe that's what launched this whole thing. Let's keep that energy today. We'll highlight another teacher after Entertainment Buzz.
Well, you know, you are an anomaly when it comes to radio. First of all, on the air for 21 years in the same city.
Yeah.
That's an anomaly.
Yep.
Then the fact that you own your show.
Yeah. Yeah, that was important. That was important.
How did you do that?
It was a contract year, and I just threw it out there, and they went for it. I tell you, you know, when you've been doing this for a while, you know this also, like, it is really not a lot of fun to work for other people. And you built up a certain amount of credibility in the industry, and I just wanted to own my own thing. I wanted to be my own boss, and if I was going to go into other radio stations, I wanted to listen to what everybody said, but I wanted inevitably to be able to make my own decisions. So I turned it into my own. It's a Bert Show LLC, and it's our own show, and we contracted out to all these radio stations around the country. But yeah, 25
stations
25
now.
stations. You know more about this than I do. But I could wake up tomorrow and it could be 23 and I wouldn't know until listeners start calling. Like, I've had calls in the morning, Tupelo calling, going, are you guys not on the radio anymore? And then I'll call the Tupelo radio station, the front desk, and they're like, yeah, we canceled you 3 days ago. So it could be 25 today, it could be 23 in a couple of days.
Any trip I took, I tried to prepare for every situation, man.
The fact that you have the longevity, and you own it, and you're syndicated, makes you stand out above everybody else. Plus, when you look at ratings, the only person who beats you normally is Scott Slade on WSB, and that is news. And when it comes to women, 25 to 54, you're #1 always. What's the magic sauce?
You have been seeing this on Twitter quite a bit, on different social media, where teachers are now like, hey, you guys, the school year's right ahead of me, and I could really use some help. Well, I don't like the fact that Scott's still beating me. So I'm very competitive. I tell you, the syndication started out of defense more than it did offense. I didn't want to be this guy that was on 10 stations, 12 stations, 25 stations, and it still doesn't matter to me. But radio was going through a time where they were making so many cuts. And I took a look around at my staff, and we had a lot of staff, and I didn't want them to have the option to go, look, you just got too many people, so we got to start making cuts. So I threw it out to them saying, look, you know what, I do got a lot of staff. If you want to put me on in Nashville or in Charleston, you go and do your own thing. And it really was out of defense. I just wanted to keep my staff. And then once they gave me a station, I'm like, hey, I can make some cash off this. So that's when we started syndicating more and more and more. Then it became offensive.
When you're being like interviewed by an icon, there's something very intimidating about that.
And now you have Pioneer.
Yeah.
And you're doing podcasting.
Yeah.
Your show alone, just the Bert Show alone, you get like what, 4 million people downloading it a month?
A month, yeah, it's about 1 million a week now.
I'm crying at the thought of a flight attendant giving Simone Biles, the most decorated gymnast in history, a coloring book because she is 4'8".
We've got a really great team, and you know, radio has been really, really great to me, but I can see that, you know, we're sort of evolving into this podcasting era, and I'm not going to be doing radio forever. I'm not going to be on the radio at 75 years old talking about the Kardashians. I am not going to be on the radio at 75 talking about the Kardashians.
It sounds like you really haven't made up your mind, Bert.
I really have made up my mind. So I'm starting to like look into podcasting and other ways that podcasting can help radio, radio can help podcasting, and we can be influencers for each other. And Pioneer really is a network built on that. So we're kind of in the baby steps right now, but that's going to be the next step, I think.
Up next, Bert shares with us the secret to his success. Plus, he opens up about the difficult relationship with his father and how that led to his proudest accomplishment.
Bert currently co-hosts with Kristen Klingshirn and Mo Mitchell. There have been other sidekicks in the past, and personnel changes haven't drastically changed the ratings.
And I don't know what this means, but The Rock will be Shark Week's first ever Master of Ceremonies.
You know, I asked you what was your secret sauce. You're just open about anything and everything.
Yeah, we try to be. I think that listeners that have been listening from the beginning have sort of grown with us. They kind of lived through Stacy and I having our kids because they had kids at the same time. And we've been talking about the same sort of problems that are going on in their life also. Look, I was very open about talking about my divorce on the show also. Now I'm getting remarried, and I talked about my new relationship also. So I think there's something to that. We don't try to hide too much, and we try to be as vulnerable and honest as we can be. And life is messy, and I think people understand that. And there was a time, I think, when we got to Atlanta, that radio was really a lot of bells and whistles and pranks and stuff like that. And I think that we came in at a time where the American public was just ready for something a little bit more real. And I just hired a bunch of people. We didn't know what we were doing, and we went on there and we said that we don't know what we're doing, and it's sort of been the same formula ever since.
Reality radio.
Kinda. Yeah, kinda.
Is there anything you all won't talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
Well, I don't like to talk about my sex life too much. That's kind of off the table. There are certain personnel issues behind the scenes that I don't like to create family drama within the studio. But yeah, I think we all have our limitations on things that we can and cannot talk about. I've been doing it a little bit longer than some of the people on the show, so it's trial and error for a lot of Bert Show members. Because we sort of demand, like, if you're going to be on the show, you got to talk about your personal life. So they're experimenting with what they can and can't talk about, but by the time they talk about it and they get home, it's too late. The fight has already started. Great radio, bad personal life.
Even though you don't realize it, and your mind's like, nah, I'm good, your body needs this hug. It needs it. Hug it out.
All right.
Hug it out. Hug it out.
Well, you've said before in interviews that you don't like being the boss.
I don't. I actually hate it. I just took this quiz a couple of days ago. It's funny. And it ranks what your strengths are. And leadership came in third out of like 4 categories.
No, that's a joke.
No, that's serious. Yeah, I have. If I had to do it all over again, Monica, I would have hired somebody to, I don't know, that would have sort of been the boss of the Bert Show rather than me kind of assuming that role. It's very difficult to do when you're trying to manage people and also do a show with them. It was impossible, actually. And I don't like that. I like coming in and having a great time and laughing, talking about things that matter. But trying to manage people, it just takes a lot of chess work and psychology, and it's exhausting to me.
You're also very sensitive.
I am, and yeah, I am. And good leaders probably can't have that gear when they're in the office. And I do take things personally. And when things go wrong, I try to figure out how I take a lot of responsibility. So when things don't go right, I try to figure out what I did to get us there. But that has been, by far, I'd say the most exhausting part of the job for me is trying to lead. That's just not my natural place. But God, the control I just felt like, if this isn't going to work, I want to be the one to make sure that it either works or it doesn't work. So I took that on and I never gave it up, and that was a mistake.
One mistake he was determined not to make. He was going to be a good father to his sons and not like his father.
We really had a very, very difficult relationship. He came from a very hard-nosed father himself. He was very dismissive. He was just a hard guy, and we were never close. My mom was sort of the same way. So when Hayden was born, I realized that I sort of had the same disconnection with Hayden that I felt that I learned from my parents. And at that point, I said, this is not going to be passed down to my kids. So I went deep into therapy for years, trying to get that connecting gene and trying to figure out how to parent my own way. And you know, as I sit here today, I can tell you it's the thing that I'm most proud of in my life, because it took a lot of work. It was literally reprogramming everything that I knew about being a parent and everything I knew about relationships also. It took a lot of hard work, but now I'm very proud of the parent I am.
When we return, Bert talks about reconciling with his father, proposing twice to his now fiancée, and why Bert's big adventure is so important. Then later in the show, comedian Myra J. tells us how she went from a social worker to comedian after a blind date.
That was on Saturday. 48 hours later, I went on stage for the first time ever to perform comedy.
Bert is so proud of the father he's become to sons Hayden and Hollis, thanks to therapy. And he's glad his father got to see it. Their path to reconciliation started with a phone call.
He was out in Arizona. I didn't even know what his situation was really, but I got a call from his wife at the time. I didn't even know he was married, saying, I just want to let you know I'm leaving your dad. And he had nobody else. He literally disconnected himself from everybody. So I flew out of there more of obligation than connection, and he was in bad shape. And I just thought, you know what? He's got nobody else. So I bring him out to Atlanta, and for 6 months, I put him in a retirement home, and we got really close in that 6 months. It's really like right out of a movie. Super close. I learned more about him in 6 months than I had my entire life. And just before he passed away, I took him to the beach because his favorite thing to do was go to the beach, and he was in his wheelchair. And I wheeled him on down onto the beach. He watched the sunset. That was kind of his last wish. And I brought him back home, and he said to me, you've become the man that I never could.
Oh.
And that was the greatest gift that he ever gave me. It was in his last couple of days, but it was a pretty tremendous gift.
Bert's gift to the community is his nonprofit, Bert's Big Adventure. Children who are chronically or terminally ill and their families are treated to a week at Disney World. All expenses paid. So far, 257 families have benefited over 20 years.
Yeah, it really is magical, because one of the requirements for the families is that this has to be their first trip to Disney World. So catching that magic for the very first time. And you got to remember also that these are kids and families that just don't have a lot of time to spend with each other. There's no such thing as a schedule. In a lot of cases, there's no such thing as a vacation. So to see them run through the park and experience all these special things that they might have seen on TV, but also do it in a family of other kids that are just like them. Monica, what we see a lot is, you know, our special needs kids feel like they're on the outside looking in. And when we get into Disney World and we've got 13 kids and we've got 72 members and we're the ones that are going through the park together, people are looking at us with envious eyes. And this might be the first time that these kids have been looked at like that. So it really is like building this safety net and this fun safety net at Disney World for 5 days that's all provided by my listeners. They do everything.
Bert is going on his own big adventure next year. He's marrying his girlfriend of 5 years, Tiffany Haynes.
When are you getting married?
Well, it's supposed to happen on March 20th. She and I are very flaky. So I've proposed twice now.
I know.
The first time was...
With no ring.
No ring. It was just spontaneous. We were talking about our future, and we were sitting in bed. I don't even know what we were watching. And the words just came out of my mouth. So let's do it. Let's get married. And she didn't believe me. It was authentic, but it was spontaneous. And she said yes, with no ring. So we went to Solomon Brothers the next day and looked for a ring. Then she started designing hers, and I didn't really want that for her. I didn't want that to be her story. It was very authentic, but I wanted her story to be a little bit more romantic than that. So we were just in Maui with the kids, and we were taking a tour of the island on a helicopter, and it landed in the middle of the island on this mountain. And I wasn't really sure where and when I was going to do it when we went to Hawaii, but this helicopter lands, she gets off and she takes one look around and she starts crying, and I'm like, this is it. So I got down on one knee and did it the right way this time.
Yes again. Yes again.
And the kids were there.
Yeah, Hollis was filming it. It's funny because you can hear, he's so stressed out getting the shot right. As I'm proposing, all you can hear is him going, just breathing heavy over the proposal. And Eliza, Tiffany's 7-year-old, was snapping pictures. So it was kind of a family thing. It was really cool.
I was not expecting that. Oh my God. Wow.
And I understand you've become a girl daddy now.
Man, she got me wrapped. Wow, anything she wants. I mean, it's 7:30 at night and I'm not even thinking anymore. And she comes in wanting to put makeup on my face, and I'm like, here we go. I mean, it's just done.
So when you look at your boys, and now soon to be, she is your daughter.
Yeah.
What is it you want for them?
Happiness, period. That's easy. That's the easiest question you threw at me today. Happiness. It's not my I just feel like if they're happy, I don't care what they're doing, you know? If you ask me about my son Hayden right now, that dude right now, I think I would say could win an Academy Award being a screenwriter. He could also be a manager at Publix and be totally happy. I don't care which one he becomes, so long as he can really truly look at himself in the mirror and say, this is my idea of happiness. I don't care what he does. It is, I don't want him to be in radio. I don't want him to be in movies. I have no expectation. The only thing I truly want for them is to be happy. That's it. And they have their own definition for that.
My next guest loves to make people laugh, whether she's doing